Good evening and welcome to This Is The Day. My name is Sarah Otieno. We are live on Family TV, also live on Family Radio where the music does the talking. Well, today we'll be highlighting some of the issues that came up during the president's speech and address to the nation yesterday, and also some of the stories that are making headline. And I will be hosting one political analyst, Mr. Jim India. But for now, we need to look at these stories, and we start off by this one. Now, the Deputy President William Ruto has said it is time the country realigned its conversations to that of the empowerment of Kenyans rather than the creation of power for a selected few. He said he would not be intimidated into abandoning the empowerment of the youth and women, arguing it is such a move that would form the basis of a discussion that leans forward to and towards people-centered issues. Dr. Ruto spoke today in his current residence, where he hosted more than 70 youth groups drawn from Nairobi County.
Because we have decided we are not Kikuyus, we are not Kalenjins, we are not Luyas, we are not Kambas, we are not Somalis, we are hustlers, and we are one, and we are united. And our business is how everybody's hustle will be improved. How to inspire everybody, how to support everybody, how to help everybody, because that way we will change Kenya. Hiyo hasira yenu na matusi yenu haiwezi kubadilisha nia yetu na mpango yetu ya kuunganisha Kenya. Wale watu ambao wanakasirika ati kwa sababu mtu amepatiwa mkokoteni, sijui mtu amepatiwa bodaboda, sijui mtu amepatiwa nini, mimi nataka niwaambie ya kwamba nyinyi mmetuzoea vibaya, marafiki zetu. Nyinyi mnatafuta vijana wakati vijana wa kutupa mawe na kufanya maandamano wanatafutwa. Saa ile tunatafuta kijana wa kupatia wheelbarrow na kupatia mkokoteni na kupatia bodaboda, mnalalamika. Kwa sababu nyinyi mnataka wateja. Hamutaki hawa wakuwe na wheelbarrow, hamutaki wakuwe na mkokoteni, hamutaki wakuwe na pikipiki, kwa sababu mnataka wateja wa kutupa mawe na kufanya maandamano. Na mnajua hawa watu wakiwa busy, wakiwa na mkokoteni, wakiwa na bodaboda, wakiendesha kioski yake, hustle ya kila mtu ikiendelea, mtakosa watu ya kwenda kufanya maandamano na kutupa mawe. Na hiyo ndio hasira mko naye na sisi. Many leaders hardly understand the problems and the challenges of ordinary people.
I will repeat what the DP has said there. Many leaders do not understand the problems and challenges of the common mwananchi. Very solid statement there. Now, Wiper Democratic Movement leader Kalonzo Musyoka has declared that he will go to full hog in seeking for presidency. Kalonzo says although Kenyans have lost faith in leaders, many have expressed confidence in his leadership while pledging to bring hope through the creation of millions of job opportunities. The Wiper leader, who was in a tour at the Coast region, was addressing party delegates at the Wild Waters Park in Nyali, and he said that he has supported all the other leaders in their presidential ambitions, saying that it was his time to vie for the top seat. He says he stood with President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy William Ruto during the trial at the International Criminal Court, that is ICC, and through the shuffle diplomacy, and also supported the ODM leader Raila Odinga 2 times for presidency.
Sisi hatutatarajia watu wakisapoti sisi tutasema haleluya. Wasipotutapot tunasonga mbele mpaka tuchukue uongozi wa Kenya. Watu tutaenda directly kwa wananchi wa Kenya. Mimi sina ubaya na ndugu yeyote yule. Wote nimewaunga mkono. Kina Ruto na Uhuru wakati walikuwa makesi yao huko duniani, mimi nikajitolea nikafanya shuttle diplomacy. Nikasema makesi yarudishwe nyumbani. Mimi ni wakili. Si nipigie makofi. Wengine wakalia, oh, don't be Hague, go to the Hague, don't be vague. Hague ikawa shida. Nafurahi kwamba sasa wao ndugu wanaendelea na kuongoza nchi ya Kenya. Mimi sina ubaya na wao. Sina ubaya vile vile na ndugu Raila ambaye nimemsupport mara 2.
All right, there we have it. Well, Kenya today has recorded 210 more cases of COVID-19, and that brings the total caseload in our country to 38,378. Now, in a press statement that was given today by the Health CS Mutahi Kagwe, he announced that 3,604 samples have been tested in the last 24 hours, and so far a cumulative of 545,019 samples have been tested in Kenya. Now, on the positive case, on the positive cases, all are Kenyans except 10 foreigners, and we have 127 who are male and 83 are female, while the youngest one is a 6-month-old, the oldest is a 91-year-old person. At the same time, 59 patients have been discharged and 49 are from the home-based care program, while 10 are from different hospitals across the country. And the total number of recoveries in our country right now stands at 24,740. Well, on a sad note, however, we lost 7 patients that have succumbed to the COVID-19 virus, and that brings the total number of those that have died due to this virus to 707. Well, our condolences goes out to the family and friends of the 7 that have lost their lives because of the COVID-19 situation. Now, still in matters health, services at Kenyatta National Hospitals have been disrupted for the second day as healthcare workers down their tools, demanding for the implementation of the 2012 pay review without undergoing a job evaluation process. Now, frustrated patients and their relatives who sought services at the facility were turned away, with some of them attacking the workers, demanding for their services. Their plea, however, fell on deaf ears as the healthcare workers remained adamant that they will not attend to the patients until their grievances are met.
SRC sisi tutaungana na wengine katika taifa hili kuhakikisha SRC imeondolewa kwenye katiba.
Tulikutana na management wa Kenyatta, tukakutana na Ministry ya Health, tukawa na officials wa Skaka. Sasa tukiwa union tukajadiliana mambo ya 7A na tukakubaliana watu walipwe na 7 bands. Mishahara tuliweka ile ambayo tuliestimate kufikia bilioni 2.4.
All right, we actually just hope for the best when it comes to our healthcare matters. Joseph from Kiserian, thank you for tuning in today. I also see Sami Wanakuru, asante sana, and also Lawrence Ocheng tuned in from Kisumu. Thank you so very much for tuning in today. You can reach us through the WhatsApp number 0786 316 also through the SMS line 20316, on Facebook and Twitter at Family Radio 316. My name is Sarah Otieno, and as promised, I have with me Jim India. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing well, Sarah. Nice to see you after a long time.
It has been a while, but again, Corona came.
Corona happened, but I'm glad that we have adjusted accordingly.
Yeah. So, Jim from Emerging Leaders Foundation, I want us to talk a little bit about what the president said yesterday. So, basically, his speech is, I may say, we were expecting some of the things that he said to us yesterday. Were you expecting the same?
The president's speeches for the last, because that was his 12th address, his speeches have become predictable in the last couple of months. We sort of know what to expect from him. We know how much he's not so much in tune with the situation. So often his script can be predicted, and he did stuck to the script, except he disappointed a few. We had seen politicians traversing the country, including himself, so we thought maybe he was going to lift the restrictions, especially when it comes to curfew. But that was the only bit that was a bit of a surprise. But the rest of it it's textbook President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Wow. So basically, to you who analyze these things, because political analysts, these are some of the jobs that you have. So it was actually predictable, as you say. But there's one point that stood out when he actually pushed forward the curfew times from 9 p.m. to 11. and to many Kenyans right now. And we've seen it going around the news that Kenyans are not actually taking into practice, or rather adhering to the curfew times even before. Do you think the 11 p.m. curfew time is going to work for Kenyans?
Sarah, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
I think the 11 p.m. curfew was put so that it looks like we are doing something. Because if you look at the net effect of pushing the time from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., there is no science or data that the president or his team has put forward to say, if we push it with these hours, then this is the number of lives we're going to save.
Yeah.
So essentially what has happened is the president and his team needs to look like they're doing something. And so the only way they will look like they're doing something is if they maintain the curfew hours. But of course, Kenya has been for a long time, we've been trying to become a 24-hour economy. So what this just does is that for a lot of people who, for instance, transport their goods, the business people who transport their goods overnight from, say, Mombasa to Nairobi, or from the western side to Nairobi, all those who want to transport their goods to Uganda from the port, those are the people who've been affected, because if we cannot travel at night, then it means that we are limiting the number of hours and we are limiting business activities across the board. So business people have been affected by this, and the hope was that now, as it seems like the curve is flattening, that would now allow business people and common Kenyans to now start enjoying their businesses as they were. But that wasn't the case, and I think that particular restriction, especially in the curfew, because it's for the next 60 days, this is not for 30 days, it's for the next 60 days. So that is going to have an adverse impact on the business environment in Kenya, as compared to if it was totally lifted.
All right. And you've talked about the 60 days issue, and this is something that actually stood out very, very openly. You know, for the first time, the president has extended this curfew and the measures for up to 2 months. Initially, it was about 30 days. So we are talking about business persons. And now the extension for 2 months. Do you think this will have a negative, and I'm very specific on this, a negative effect on our economy as a country, and especially to business persons?
It's going to have an adverse effect, Sarah, because as I said, people who are in the transport business, and you know the transport business and sector employs a lot of people. So we are talking about business people who are moving their goods from the port of Mombasa into the hinterland, that's either in Nairobi or all the way to Uganda. That's business that is affected. But we're also talking about the buses, you know, people who travel at night because they need to be in whatever at night. We're talking about agriculture. Most of our agricultural produce is actually transported at night and comes into the cities and comes into the markets in the morning. So we are not just looking at, in the grand scale, it's not just the business people who are going to be affected, but it is the people who are in that supply chain at the end of the day who are going to be affected. It means that the farmer is not able to get their produce to the vendor. It means that we who are buying goods, we are also not able to access it. There's a chance that the inflation rate will also go up because now the law of the demand and supply, if demand is low and it looks like the demand is going to be low, then it means that the prices are going to go high. As prices are going high, a number of people in the economy cannot afford. We do not have the purchasing power. And the reason we do not have the purchasing power is because we are out of work. So the whole curfew business has been a zero-sum game because at the end of the day, it was to save lives. But it looks like, at least from the information that we're getting from the ministry, it looks like we are getting into the phase where things are getting better. But instead of us cushioning the economy, we've actually pushed it for another 2 months, not even 1 month, 2 months. So we're going to be crazy.
All right. Well, join our discussion today. Send us your views. And if you have any questions for us, use the WhatsApp number 0786316316. And also you can tell us what you feel about the measures that were put out yesterday by the president during his address to the nation. But for now, Jimmy, I want us to talk about the issue of political rallies. And for some time now, like, there is no weekend that has passed and I have not seen a political rally somewhere, you know, and this event comes after the Ministry of Health was very strategic that we should avoid gatherings and just exercise social distancing. But yesterday the president said something very interesting, if I may use that word. He said that it's up to us and politicians to take responsibilities for ourselves. But if you look at it from this other point of view, he is also a politician. What do you feel about that particular clause that he said?
Sarah, I've always pushed against that particular narrative, and it's a narrative that a lot of times irresponsible governments push to the general public. And this is the narrative. It is, and during the time when we had a lot of terror attacks, the narrative was security starts with you. Okay, that is the first thing we said. We said security starts with you, not with government. It starts with you. Now we're in a pandemic. The same government is saying your health starts with you. Now, whereas academically that might make sense, we the people have a social contract with this government. And part of that contract is that public health and public safety is in the hands of this government. It is their responsibility. We have delegated that responsibility to them. So while it is my personal responsibility to make sure that I am not sick, it does not take away the responsibility of government to ensure that they put in place safety measures, they put in place policies, and they put in place effective mechanisms to ensure that my health is protected. So it is easy to, if you were, because we are a litigating country, it is easy for someone to litigate and say that I fell sick because government did not put in place the right measures to protect my health. So you're having politicians going around doing rallies, including the president himself. And then the very politicians come and say, your security is your job. That's on you. So what happens to the social contract that we have with it? That is, in essence, as I've said, it's always a sign of a failing government, a sign of a government that is trying to account duty and move away from its primary responsibility. So this is a shared responsibility, and yes, it starts with me, but it also stops. It might start with me, but it stops with this government to ensure that the people are safe. But number two, when you look at politicians, at the end of the day, what happened for instance, in Tanzania and what happened in Burundi was that they were in an election period. And if you look at across all countries that have been including the United States of America, one of their greatest challenges to this pandemic has been the upcoming election. Our politicians have lost about 1 year. They have not been politicking for about a year. They know that is time lost. So a lot of them right now are out there campaigning. And somebody even said, if this pandemic happened in 2022, we probably would have been another Tanzania. That is what would have happened. The reason we are where we are, it's because we were, a couple of years away from our next election. But what we are seeing right now is just the scramble for power and politicians realizing that they're out of time and using this particular pandemic as fodder to now, politics. So we have politicians who are using it because there are a lot of people who are unemployed and do not have money, using it, taking advantage to give handouts. And so that becomes a premise for voting for them. We have politicians who are using this pandemic to also gain a lot of clout so that they look like they are trying to protect public interest. So they're also trying to gain clout. So everyone is trying to play with this pandemic to get as much votes as possible. The sad part is we Kenyans will fall for this trap again.
Wow.
That's the sad thing.
And that's evident, Even look at the rally that happened about 2 weeks ago in Kisii County, and so many people were crowded around the deputy president, people even not wearing their face masks. And as you're saying, we are falling for this, but it's also implicating negatively on our lives as Kenyans. Look at our health. And if you look at it this way, Jim, for the last couple of days, the numbers have been 200 and above, or let's say 150 and above. And the number of people that are succumbing to COVID-19 is not going down. Today we have 7 people that have lost their lives because of COVID. So can we say, or rather, can we retaliate what the Ministry of Health and even the President said yesterday when he said that our positivity caseload is at 4.5? Can we say that there is hope for Kenyans when it comes to preventing a second wave of attack or even flattening the curve of COVID-19?
That is actually the most difficult thing to do, because we have a positivity rate of about 4.5%. And we know that if it's below 5%, we're sort of out of the woods. But the problem with this is if we keep, like Mutai used to tell us when he was a bit more serious with this pandemic than he is now, that if we behave normally, this thing will treat us abnormally. So now we have now gone to behaving normally. And being, we are being influenced and being encouraged to behave normally by the political class. Now, you must realize that it's a very difficult balance, especially for Mwananchi to do. Because the balance is I either stay home and stay hungry or go out and have something for my kids.
Yeah.
I either risk my life, and we have lived our entire lives risking it. Our parents raised us risking it. We are raising our kids risking it. Our kids are risking it every day. We become a risking nation. And so we have normalized being treated without much dignity. And that is what is happening right now. So there's a chance that we could have a second wave. And all that we have to do is to look at nations in Asia, look at nations in Europe and America, who looked like they were out of the woods. And then when they went back to behaving normally, they had a second wave of attack. Now, we must thank God that in Africa, and particularly in Kenya, we did not experience the kind of projections that we were giving ourselves. And that for some reason that science is yet to explain to us, that maybe we will just say God saved us. We do not want to go back to that kind of place. So it is critical, in my opinion, for the Ministry of Health to keep putting in place the measures, because it's not just going to the politicians. Now you're going into the matatus, and people are no longer doing the social distancing in matatus. People are no longer wearing masks on the streets. The reason is the leaders are already projecting that we are out of the woods. And if that is what the leaders are projecting, then there's going to be a problem. I remember when Sakaja broke the rules, you know, the health rules that had been put in place, and the police looked for him, and he was arrested, and he had to resign as the chair of the COVID-19 ad hoc committee. We were serious then.
Yeah.
Now we are seeing politicians breaking rules in daylight, going into public rallies, not wearing masks or anything like that. Nothing is happening to them. What message are we sending to the people? So we, as a nation and our political class, they're risking our lives for their own gain again. As I said, this is a race for numbers for the 2022 elections.
Okay, wow, that's very unfortunate, but sadly it's happening in our country. But I want us to talk about something that most people have been talking about, and this is the reopening of schools. Well, yesterday the president said that they will not reopen schools until we are ready, and the health of our children is a priority here. But then just days before that, exactly the same day, actually, just the same yesterday, teachers were told to report back to school. And those that didn't were actually in for some punishment, you know. So am I right to say that there is a miscommunication between this ministry that is telling teachers to go back to school and giving parents and students the impression that schools will be reopened in October, and the president himself, who says that for now the health of our children is a priority? Kuna shida wapi?
I think, sir, let me just point you to the fact that just after that conference, the president is heading out to France on a borrowing mission. Yes. On a begging mission. And on loan. We know how he's sometimes a bit reckless with his signature, especially on loans. And we are sure that what he's coming back with is a lot of loans and a lot of debt for this country. Yeah. What's going on is that government has gone through this cash crunch that has been caused by one. We got a lot of grants and a lot of monies that came in through donations, you know, to fight COVID. And of course, we saw what happened. Most of it was lost. And even some that had been already committed, some of donors withheld that money in view of what was happening to already get granted money. So government, and of course, it's shrinking because KRA is not collecting money because people are not paying taxes, because people are not working. So there is no money within government. So government needs to look like it is efficient and it is working. That is the only way that you're able to secure loans. That's the only way you're able to secure money. So the president can tell us one thing with his mouth and say that we need to protect our children, but we will only believe what we see his deputies and his, you know, ministers doing, which is telling us universities have been ordered to open school now. Yes. And TVETs have been ordered to open school. We've seen teachers have been ordered to go back to school. So in a way, we know that they're going back to school, and education is going to be one of the places that the president is going to borrow heavily so that they can come and fund education in the name of, hey, we were in a break and now we need money to do this. So there needs to be a sense of normalcy for us to borrow money. So that is what is going to be created. The unfortunate thing is that, of course, we're going to have a lot of debt that's coming our way. Our children were going to be at risk. We do not know if they will be safe in schools. There's a chance that those PPEs will be sold to parents who do not even have the money now, all in the name of a government that failed to properly plan itself. It had adequate time, but failed to properly plan itself. And even when it planned, it failed to be accountable to the people who gave it the power to do so. So, yes, I think for me, when I see the signs from the Ministry of Education, I link it to the president's visit to France in the coming days, and I see a direct correlation between a sense of normalcy and borrowing externally.
All right. Well, okay. Sami from Nakuru is saying the president did it after wide consultation with the health ministry. Economy should be opened up in phases to avoid second wave insurgents. It is very much in order. This is Sami from Nakuru who is saying that. Sarah Wanaivashi is saying, I like the discussion today. It's very clear that our president thought about the children. And besides, parents will also have enough time to look for money. And this is something that most parents were talking about. Martin Dungu, thank you so much for tuning in, and say hi to Abigail. I also have Mike from Nakuru saying, hello, I am tuned in and having a listen of what you have to say. Well, Jimmy, before I let you go, do you think at some point we will not be having curfew in our country and our economy will be back to normal?
The shock, this economy was not built to absorb the kind of shock that it has absorbed for the last 6 months. Unfortunately, we do not have the right cushioning, we do not have the right systems in place to cushion our economy, because our economy mostly is the Juakali sector.
Yeah.
So it's the informal economy. So the informal economy is not, because if the private sector is struggling, and we're seeing, the likes of KQ, we're seeing the banks, we're seeing the hotel industry that is struggling. The largest share of our economy, which is the informal sector, is going to even struggle more because it was not built to be this resilient. The shock that we have taken for 6 months is being projected that will take us maybe another 5 years to recover from. So the next government that's coming in 2022, because this government clearly will not do it, the next government that's coming in has to do so much work to ensure that the economy revives itself. It has to do the work that the Kibaki government did in 2002, where they found an economy that was in negative. They had to put in place mechanisms, people, institutions to revive the economy. So we will need an economic revival team that does that work from 2022, because the shock that we have taken in, the millions of jobs that young people have lost in the process, these are not jobs that will be regained if we do not plan accordingly, and if we do not create industries and markets that then will absorb these young people who lost their jobs. The number of young people who are stuck in school, we're going to have so many millions being pushed into the market, millions being pushed into out so that they can get jobs. So we have to be prepared, because remember, you leave young people jobless, they become desperate. And when young people become desperate, then the country becomes ungovernable. So it is in our best interest to ensure that the next couple of years we spend it reviving this economy and resuscitating it from the shock that it has taken from this pandemic.
Wow, I like that. Fresha Wairimu, thank you so much. You're saying, I am loving the discussion today 100%. Thank you, Jim India. I really appreciate the information that you've given us, and for tuning in today. Thank you. And thank you, Jim.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
All right. Have a good evening.
All right, you too.
Thank you, Maggie, for tuning in today. Maggie Musioka from Kangundo. And you're saying you love the show. Asante sana. I really appreciate. She's here, you're saying, Leo, I'm just listening. Niko salama kabisa labda wewe. And thank you for tuning in today. Well, the Interfaith Council on COVID-19 is transitioning on the first two of the reopening of places of worship for congregational prayer sessions. And the council's chairperson, Bishop Anthony Muheria, also said that they had reviewed the health protocols and new guidelines which will come into effect from the October 2nd. He was speaking during a press briefing today, and Bishop Muheria said that the council evaluated adherence to the health protocol and noted that there was over 95% compliance. He stated that the places of worship shall now be opened for 2 hours for a single worship duration limit, as opposed to the previous 1 hour that was given and directed by the government.
The limit of the time duration of worship session will now be 2 hours. We will also allow group meetings and special services for youth and special groups provided they follow the other criteria of social spacing and duration. The number allowed in any place of worship will now be determined by the 1.2 social distancing. 1.2 meters social distancing. We here, as the Interfaith Council, wish to appeal to you, our dear political leaders, that we should not gamble with the lives of Kenyans. Please, we ask you in this COVID time, please postpone your political public gatherings that put our people at risk because they gather without masks and without social distancing. We need you to give us an example of compliance beyond wearing masks.
While the bishop, however, called out on the sick and the vulnerable groups to make sure that they stay home and even follow the church proceedings online and virtually just before they are fit enough or until they are fit enough health-wise to attend the physical services. Now, the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers blames the Education Ministry for the current confusion on the reopening of schools. The union says a lack of a clear strategy by the ministry has made it impossible for the implementation of the roadmap back to our classrooms. And KUPPET wants an emergency fund allocated and set aside to enable schools reopen.
There's no problem. The fact that there is no money for school to reopen is neither here nor there, because we expected schools in 2020 to run, and that we have also seen a very huge chunk in the ministry, in the education subsector, going to salaries in the payment of all the staff in the Ministry of Education, and even teachers are being paid. So the question of money being there or not, I don't think is a function of the decision which the president took. The president took a step based on preparedness. Are our schools ready for learners? That is the issue. And they are based on three indicators. Do we have sufficient space? Are we having water in schools? Are we able to arrange the desk they are supposed to be according to health protocol? So that is the issue which we have.
Well, and now talking about COVID-19 and the protocols. Now, thousands of protesters have been gathering at the London's Trafalgar Square to protest the lockdown and social distancing rules that have been imposed to slow down the spread of COVID-19. London's Metropolitan Police have warned demonstrators to follow social distancing rules, and the police said before the event that officers will first engage with the people and explain the social distancing rules, but they will take enforcement action if protesters still fail to comply with these rules. As the protest began, police were visible around the edges of the crowd but didn't confront the protesters, most of whom were not wearing their face masks. The demonstration comes as Parliament prepares to review the COVID-19 legislation and the government imposes the new restrictions to control the disease. Some lawmakers have criticized the government for implementing the rules without parliamentary approval.
Say no to the tyranny!
They call themselves the Resistance.
The idea is that it's a creep towards chipping us and controlling us, and this has been an agenda of possibly the Rockefellers in particular, Gates, the swamp, the deep state.
They're here, some of them, to protest against the government's powers to reimpose lockdown restrictions by decree. Some, of course, believe the pandemic is a hoax.
We're getting threats, fear, blackmail. They're doing everything they can to force us to say, OK, just give me the injection.
It's extremely dangerous. We often forget that up until 100 years ago, incredibly large numbers of children were dying from infectious diseases, and one by one, from polio and measles and so on, we have managed to largely eliminate those diseases from widespread transmission, and that's had a huge impact. The only way that we are going to control the spread of this disease is by having an effective vaccine and having sufficient uptake of the vaccine to prevent it being spread from person to person.
All right, now to the U.S., where President Donald Trump and the Democratic challenger Joe Biden will meet face to face for the first time in the 2020 campaign today in what analysts expect to be a bruising presidential debate hinged on personal attacks. Now, the 90-minute contest that is supposed to take place in Cleveland, the first debate of the general election, will be stripped by typical debate standards, and there will be no handshake because of the COVID-19 measures and no opening statements, fitting for an unconventional race that has been eclipsed by the coronavirus pandemic, social upheaval, and a heated Supreme Court battle over the vacancy that was left by the Justice Ruth Bader's death.
It will be a presidential debate unlike any in modern history. President Trump and Joe Biden on the same stage for the first time. No handshake, no opening statements. And Biden is prepared for the gloves to come off right out of the gate.
He's going to want to make it personal. He's going to want to get in the mosh pit. I'm going to talk about why I want to be president of the United States.
He has taken time off the trail to prepare. But the president campaigning hard, 9 events in the last week.
How many hours would you say you've spent on debate?
It's a little time. I mean, not a lot.
More or less than 60.
I'm running a country. I don't have the luxury.
The first question will go to President Trump, who's using his 3rd Supreme Court pick to fire up his base. Formally nominating Judge Amy Coney Barrett to fill Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat this weekend.
She is a woman of unparalleled achievement, towering intellect, sterling credentials, and unyielding loyalty to the Constitution.
And Biden is making the case that health care and guaranteed coverage for pre-existing conditions for millions of Americans is at stake, with the court set to take up the fate of the Affordable Care Act just 1 week after the election.
The clear focus is, this is about your health care. This is about whether or not the ACA will exist. This is about whether or not pre-existing conditions will continue to be covered.
He's heading into tomorrow with a 10-point lead in national polls over the president, and he'll be in his element with 26 vice presidential and presidential primary debates under his belt. But this time he'll be head-to-head with a president who acknowledges he began prepping weeks ago. Here's what Biden said about that to David.
The president said he's already prepping for the debates. Are you?
So am I. I can hardly wait.
Who's playing Trump?
I'm prepping.
And in these final hours before the debate, Biden says going up against Donald Trump is a whole other ballgame.
What do you have to do to win?
All right, indeed, it's going to be a heated debate. And if you are the U.S. politics kind of person, this debate will be taking place tonight at 2 a.m. Kenyan time. You do not want to miss out on that. And it's going to be an interesting one. Anyway, let's head over to some other news. Now, one of the world's youngest climate change activists by the name Lisipriya Kangujam is seeking to press the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to commit to a climate change law. Now, the 80-year-old, who also founded her voluntary organization, the Child Movement, was inspired by the devastating scenes in Nepal. She watched on TV and also stories told by her father, who went as a volunteer to deliver aid to the victims of the earthquake in 2015. Now, she is born in India, northeastern state of Manipur, and home to a crystal clear air. Kangujal, that is the girl, the activist, has also been outraged by the air qualities she has seen in Delhi.
My name is Lisipriya Kangujam. I'm 8 years old. I'm an Indian climate activist and the founder of the Child Movement. I'm fighting to save our planet and our future. I'm here in front of the Parliament House to tell our Honorable Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, and our MPs to pass the climate change law as soon as possible from the paper to become action. a real name while writing a story.
That is what we call young babies for change. I like it. Starting to push for change at a very young age of 8 years old, and she has support from her parents and different people for climate change. That is a good move. Well, that's all that we had for today. Thank you so much for tuning into the show and for the contribution, and also standing with us and partnering with Family Media. We are very much grateful. If you want to be a partner with Family Media, just send in the word partner to 20316 and we'll get back to you, explain to you what partnership really means and how you can help us keep Jesus on the airwaves. Thank you so much from the team and I. Good night. I'll see you tomorrow.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs, from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.